decade, neuroscience has uncovered a wealth of new information about our senses and how they serve as a gateway to the world. Senses shape our perception of the world aesthetically, artistically, and musically. I'm delighted to have Jeff Yang on the podcast today. Jeff is a creator and artistic director of In the Realm of Senses. He is a violinist born in Taiwan and originally from Seattle who came to Chicago to study music at Northwestern University. With 4 degrees in music and industrial engineering, he has always strived to find a balance between the arts and the sciences. Jeff has appeared in numerous PBS Sound Stage recordings with artists such as Jewel, Faith Hill, Peter Cetera, Dennis DeYoung, Lyle Lovett, and has performed in live concerts with Stevie Wonder, Bruce Springsteen, Bernadette Peters, and various other artists. Currently, Jeff is the owner of the Chicago Strings Violin Shop in Evanston, where he deals with fine instruments and helps professional musicians through his expertise. He's an active member of Chicago Philharmonic and can be often seen with various ensembles throughout Chicago. Welcome, Jeff.
Thank you for having me.
I'm very curious and intrigued to hear about the organization called In the Realm of Senses. Is the objective of your nonprofit to explore the wonders of the human brain and provide sort of unparalleled insights into it?
It's very multimodal. There's certain things about how it relates to human experience, and also to explore how arts can be explored in a completely new way in the future. I think I always believe that to be human is to be able to create and to we always believe in something greater than us, and we can write, but I think music is a core of what makes us human, and we explore how music can be paired with visual arts, with perfumery, with scents, with food, gastronomy, with various visual arts, theater, and even dance, to create a more immersive experience that we can understand, what it is to be human, and all the all the different creative forms that we can, as humans, we can do and create, that sets us apart from all other living things.
Right. So, what is a typical experience at in the realm of senses like? Would it be incorporating all the aspects, or is it only two or three, or depends on
Yeah,
what the artist
I'm
chooses?
also the curator of all the experiences, so I put the artists together, and we usually use 3 or 4 different senses at a time, usually three. It's pretty common to do visuals and music, or even food and music. I've done that a lot with various organizations and concerts, but I always found it was very lacking, because there's such great music, but very mediocre art, or great art and very mediocre music, or they just pair French wine with French music, which didn't really make any sense to me. When I taste the wine and listen to music, it didn't connect. So somehow I was able to create a lot of exhibits and concerts that actually made sense, with really high level artists, really fine chefs, French perfumers in New York, German perfumers in New York, that are really great at what they do. And people were really, really excited to do that. So we were able to create a lot of high quality art and concerts in the very first year that I started this project. And that's what catapulted us to where we are as a nonprofit. And we're hoping to grow this organization and really change the world, and change the way the arts and the music are experienced.
Wonderful. Sounds very exciting. My question, the question that arises to me is when you have so many artists, they have their own version, their own perception of art, or their own perception of how something should look or sound or taste. So, is there a unanimous decision there, or you need to be constantly making sure that all the artists are kind of blending in the way
Yes.
you expect it to be.
My vision was that to bring different artists of different modes together to create something new. I usually base it on one artist or one theme. For example, we did an Elements
Mhm.
exhibit in 2018, my first major exhibit, and we did it in 3,000 square feet of space in three different buildings, featuring 25 artists from
Wow.
all the modes, and we did earth, air, water, fire, and metal. And but in the water exhibit, it was just one white room with really tall ceilings, white walls, white ceilings, and wood floors. So I what I had was originally
Mhm.
a soundtrack by a composer, Ryan Egebretson, that was sample sounds of Lake Michigan, and he was an electronic composer. So he created a 8 channel piece based on sample sound from 1 foot away to all the way from 100 yards away from the lake, and he created a 12-minute piece based on that, and we had this room, and we thought we used 4 tracks, four different speakers, and he suggested using a projection artist that was thinking about projecting water or creating an art installation in that room, and he connected me with amazing artist
Mhm.
Libu Passare, who created an original projection of water flowing upward and downward from the walls to the ceiling and back down, and we had a Violet Hour, which is a very famous cocktail bar here in Chicago. They decided to contribute their signature gin cocktail called Juliet and Romeo, which is like a gin and cucumber rose water. So when you walk in there, you have this little drink, and then you see the water, and you can hear the sounds of water, and it just completely envelops you, and it's the feeling that you get. It's really incredible.
Mm.
That's probably our the one that people want us to repeat, but it's very specific to location. So something like that, I curate certain people. Some people create other things to it. For a fire exhibit, we had Eating in the Dark, and I talked to a famous Thai chef, Arun's Thai here in Chicago. Has been around for over 30 years. He wanted to make a Japanese inari because he makes Thai
Mhm.
food all the time. He was excited to make a different type of food, and I told him it was fire. We wanted to be spicy, so he made it a spicy version of inari, and we ate in the dark, so you could touch the tofu, you can feel the texture, and we created a perfume from a local perfumer, Bambi Montgomery, and I had my colleague Amos Gillespie read a jazz trio piece about 10 minutes long. So you would eat this inari, perform with live music in the dark with the scent, and then you finish it with a chocolate by a chocolate Uzma, who created a Saigon cinnamon and a dark chocolate that was spicy. That was a surprise, when you eat it, and the spice kind of kicks in at the end. So that was a fire
Yeah,
experience.
it's good.
So
Okay.
every single thing we do is a little different, and that's our art exhibition. For the concert, we base it more on the music, and we have a variety of different shows that explore the live creation of art. We celebrate Beethoven's birthday. We actually have a show celebrating Beethoven's 250th birthday that got delayed 3 years. It's going to be a celebration of Beethoven's music and
Mhm.
the comedy of John Belushi from the 70s. And we're going to do a comedy skit based on Beethoven's life and his music. So
Lovely. All those experiences sound exotic to me, and something that is really, really looking forward to. When and when somebody goes into such an immersive experience, do you give them an idea of what to expect, or is it a
It really
total surprise?
depends. Some of the events we do have programs for. During COVID, we only had QR programs. We're not able to say a lot, but I try to, when it's appropriate, when the scents are developed by perfumers and they have descriptions of perfumes, I try to talk about it before we play it. But we also experimented with not telling anybody about it. And when you get the scent at an unexpected moment, the experience is quite extraordinary. And I remember my very first show. In
Yeah.
2018, one of my musician colleagues was at the show. We created pictures at an exhibition by Mussorgsky. I had arranged it for myself and a piano player. If you don't know, pictures at exhibition was written by Mussorgsky in the 1800s for solo piano. Maurice Ravel arranged it for symphony orchestra in 1922, and was a beautiful orchestration as a staple of orchestral music. So I kind of devolved it. I dearranged it for two players, and I play violin, viola, cello, and four Baroque flutes, and I paired that with piano. So it's kind of homage to Ravel and Mussorgsky, but in a reduced format. But we have eight instruments for two players, and I paired it to visual lithographs. There's some lithographs made for all 15 movements. We digitized it, animated it, and projected it
Mhm.
as we performed. And I had Christophe Laudemille, the French perfumer, create two scents, one for the whole show and one for the last movement, which happens to be the Great Gate of Kiev. Was a painting of gate in Kiev that was never built, was made for architecture competition, and also paired four different movements of the music with different
Mhm.
chefs' creations. So it's like a fully immersive music, animations, food, and perfumery. And at the last movement, when the Great Gate of Kiev happens, the scent will come out at you, and there's no warning. And my colleague said after the show, she goes, "That was the most amazing moment of my life." And I was utterly shocked because, yeah,
Yeah,
because
I
just the
can
moment you play
imagine.
the first note of the Great Gate of Kiev, which is traditionally done by trumpets in the orchestra, it's very grand. It's like the last movement. And she said that hit her at the exact
Mm-hmm.
same time. And then she said that was just the most amazing thing. And I can't, I don't experience it because I'm
Wow.
playing, but it can really shape people's imaginations and their feelings quite a lot with sense.
Right. When you talk about these episodic memories, so do you think this kind of art, um, something that a person feels intrinsically, can this aspect be utilized in something like therapy,
Yeah,
not
absolutely.
immediately,
I
but
think
maybe in future?
I think there's various scientists and doctors and people are already using aromatherapy for things. One of the things we explore is how colors affect your senses. Christophe Laudemille, the perfumer in New York, he's a French perfumer in New York, um, has explored these things. He would have a bottle of perfume in white in a clear glass and one in a dark glass, and it would be the same thing. And he'll spray it, and you would say
Hmm.
that it smells completely different. And then he did it. He had a room. One room is one side is white, one side is black, and you would have the same scent in the room. When you turn towards a white wall, it would smell different than when you turn towards the black wall. So he created this scent called air, where he would have he would look at different colors in different rooms. So I utilize that in our elements show in the air exhibit, where we have different rooms of different fabrics with poetry projected onto it, written by a poet. Um, and then we
Texture.
would spray
Mhm.
the curtains with this air scent. And everyone would say the blue room smells so good, at the end of when they journey through the whole four rooms, white room and red and green, then blue. And but I tell them it's the same scent, and they wouldn't believe it. So, but we also created a whiskey event in
Yeah.
during COVID just to explore this because we couldn't have a lot of people. So it was when the restrictions lifted, we had people wear masks, and we would taste nine whiskeys, and we would explore how colors would change your taste, and we would rate them by sweetness, sourness, bitterness, length of finish, how spicy it is, and it would change. It's just fascinating, and we take those data points and we try to make sense of them. We're hoping to get a grant to study that. But the funny thing is, my optometrist came over for a whiskey tasting, and her husband is an optometrist as well. And I told them about my experiment, And her
Oh.
husband says, "Oh, we do this already. I have a whole series of glasses with colored lenses, plastic kind of film, and it changes your brainwave patterns. Um,
Hmm.
and this is it's therapy. So he has like 12 different colors, and he prescribes those to patients that have trauma, like car accidents or certain brain injuries where they can't focus or their brain's going too active, and that they can calm them down. It's fascinating. People are using
That
that
is
already, even though it's not clear how it works,
hmm,
but people know it does work, and it does change your brainwave patterns in certain ways.
fascinating. Yeah, it is fascinating. Just recently, I was reading a book. I think I will not disclose the name here, but it talks about the colors that people have, the energy colors, the auras that people have. And I think people are being given their personality types based on the color of that person. So I would think that organizations like yours will be very useful or will be in demand for corporates who want to make sure that their employees are a right fit for the job that they are
It's very
promoting.
possible.
So, do you also have offers like that?
Excuse me?
You don't have anything. You
No,
don't have
not
any
yet.
such offer yet.
No, we're still in our very early stages. We're just trying to get grants so we can have some full-time operating staff, and so we can actually produce our project, because our projects are funded completely by ticket sales and very small grants and small private donations so far. So we're
Wow.
actually looking
Okay.
for board members, and we're
Right.
applying for larger grants this year. This is only our second year being able to apply for them. So, but there's a lot of
Mhm.
avenues. We see this in education. We want to bring that to kids.
So
We want to
many,
bring the
yes.
sensory art to kids, like high quality art. We don't want to water it down like we often do, and just let the kids experience high level art and see what can be
Right.
made and inspire them. We also want to change the way classical orchestral music is being experienced, because there's been a lull in classical music, Western classical music, for decades, and everyone thinks we're not going to survive. There's just not the demand for it, and I think classical music and operas and orchestral music should have a, a sensory element that's highly designed and high quality, paired to the music, in order to make it a lot more alive and more relevant. Um,
Right.
and that's in addition to the creation of the arts itself.
I
So we
think
want
that
to
is,
do a
yeah.
lot of different things, and also a scientific exploration, but get grants to study how colors affect different senses in different ways, and that's not being done yet.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And, I think today artists are more under pressure to accelerate their creativity, to want to bring out something that is appealing to the public. So, organizations like yours would definitely help in creating that niche area where people can actually experience art in its true
Yeah,
sense.
it's for both the audience and the creators. So it's when you go to one of our events, it's really the audience is surprised. Some of the artists are surprised, because it's it's so different from what you think of your own art standing by itself. When it's paired with something else, it has a life of its own.
Yeah. Let's take a break to understand what Chizuba is. Everyone at some point ponders on how this beautiful life can be made more meaningful. Maybe you're a leader trying to enhance your employees' experience at your organization. Or you already work for the community and seek volunteers with state of the art skills to strengthen your nonprofit. Whatever your situation, know that you can make a difference. Chizuba began with this very vision, a vision to facilitate every skill and every passion in the world in meeting a social need. Corporate volunteering has several benefits for both businesses and organizations. In parallel, experienced and enthusiastic volunteers join NGO workers, enabling them to serve the community more effectively. Chizuba offers everyone looking to add purpose and meaning to their lives a chance to connect or volunteer virtually with nonprofit organizations from over 100 countries around the world. Visit www.chizuba.net and explore opportunities to find meaning. Chizuba, your platform to do good. And now, back with our guest. Absolutely. This bringing together, this creative production, how much time does it take? Is it something that you present in every 3 months or 2 months? How much time does it take to
Um,
curate this?
it really takes well, it takes some time, but these are some of the things I thought about 20, 25 years ago. Some of the ideas came about 25 years ago.
What
Um,
kind?
so I had a lot of time to think about it. And but in the last 5, 6 years, I've thought about numerous projects I wanted to do. So in my mind, I have these ideas and I collate them into little several projects that I think would work, and I
Mm.
test them out either in my mind or like for pictures at exhibition. I was on tour and I said, well, why don't I play 7 instruments that I play and see if I can make it work into this particular piece in this original key. And it happened to work. And it's just like a miracle. It's the only piece that I can think of since that can work like that. So, but other things take relatively short amount of time. For Elements show, I didn't expect to do that for about 2, 3 years. Ended up being our very first major show because someone in a Pilsen neighborhood, the owner of many of the art spaces, donated 3 bits to us, so free of charge, which you believe in our mission. And I said, well, I'm just going to do it. I have 3 months to collate all the artists, but I had a vision of what I wanted in air and water, and I just went out and find the artists and the musicians that I knew. And if I didn't know them, I would ask people. Um, but I already had it in my mind. So we were able to do it in less than 3 weeks, get all the artists. And everyone started production. I use existing artwork, new
That's
artwork.
awesome.
It depends on the artist. And built sets, designed spaces, got to work, then did it all within 3 months, and that's just kind of crazy. But most of our events are about 5, 6 months ahead of time. We do 2 to 3. We usually do 2 main events, 3 events. Last year we did a fundraiser for Ukraine. We reuse our pictures at exhibition with new visual content. So we were pairing Chicago artists and featuring Chicago artists for different movements of that piece, which are originally based on paintings anyways. That's why it's called Pictures at Exhibition, is a vignette of different paintings. So I decided to to pair all different paintings with different artists in different visual mediums, in film, animation, um, uh, so manipulation, videos and all sorts of things. So we did one for Ukraine and played Ukrainian music to celebrate Ukraine. We raised over $8,000 for 3 different nonprofits that was aiding Ukraine. And then we did a creation in motion, which is a live art creation. We did 3 segments where Iranian Farnash, she's a female artist from Iran, and she played piano and animated her own digital artwork while she sang. And we created a scent that was based on old Persian perfumes that
Wow.
was being played during that time. The second segment was a live creation by a Kenyan Indian artist. She's a kind of like I describe her as somewhat of a Rumi of the visual arts. She can paint, and she's a whirlwind, and she does 3 paintings in 35 minutes. Paired to my friend Dominic Johnson, he's a DJ,
Wow.
so he spun 30 minutes of music based on 3 different artists that she designated to start with. So he was spin based on these feelings of music, and she would just paint and whirl around and do Kenyan art, and influenced by a Dadaist art because she worked in Switzerland.
That's amazing.
So that was very interesting. Was with live violin. He played violin while he spun the music. And the third segment, we had a collage artist and
So,
Libby Passari and Sherry Pundrich. They created of a filming of different layers of collage art on this acrylic tray that has depth. So the camera would move in and out of it and up and down, and would be projection mapped on these circular screens. And I would pair different composers' music to different types of collages. And I did Misha Zupko's from Twilight, and Ryan Gebretzon's Reparametrization, which is an electronic piece that's triggered by different uh, pitches. So if you play high pitch, it will trigger certain effects. If you play low pitch, it will trigger certain effects. So it was very modern. That segment of the show. So we did two of those pieces. In the third segment, I improvised based on what I saw. It was nature, green, forest, and we created a set that was based on nature and green. And so that was all creation and motion.
mhm.
So all the aspects were done live. We never know what's going to happen, and that was our show last fall. So
It's very exciting. Yeah, that's very exciting. So I have another question. When you have a show like this, is the experience always a pleasant
I
experience?
try to make it coherent, so it's so things make sense. For me, it's always like the nautilus shell. You know, the golden proportions is when you find the right combinations and the right proportions and the right connections between all the arts, then everything makes sense on the surface level and several levels down. So so there's a lot of connections between all the elements that are within each of our shows. So if you understand the medium, there's something deeper to look at. If you don't understand the medium, or if you're not a classical music fan, you can still enjoy it. But I do try to make it enjoyable. But some of the modern pieces are somewhat difficult. Um, yeah, but when it makes sense with the
Exactly.
visuals,
That's
you
why,
know,
yeah.
you have a different experience, and people enjoy that, and then people are open to it in different ways, that they don't expect. I want to just open the eyes of or the sensory elements of people that are just into music. They never look at visual arts, or people are in art that never think about perfumery. People are in perfumery, never think about music or food, or they're not interested in that other aspects of creation. And that's this way we people get excited about all the modes of creation.
Yeah. So when I talk about artists, when artists try to convey a message, say you're trying to convey the message of global warming or something to do with how something is deteriorating. Obviously, that is also what art does, right? Talk about stark reality. So, do you also incorporate such experiences in your shows, or is it only the nice and
That's
the
something
pleasant and the enjoyable
we will
part of it?
address as we go along, because there's a lot of things I want to talk about equality, about about nature. We have the ability. I do work with a lot of artists that are in that field, and they want to promote those missions. But we have the ability to do that and create a lot of interest. But that's somewhere down the line. Um, but hopefully very soon, once we get
Yeah, okay.
funding from grants and from private donors, we can start creating and have an agenda, a social agenda. Right now, we're just trying to build and spread out the word and try to. Our first thing is to try to reach students and young and underserved uh, populations in Chicago. And where people want to bring us to Taiwan, where I was born, and also to India, and also to Kenya, so there and possibly to Japan. So people are interested in taking us to other places already. So we just have to work out how we can do those things, and eventually we want to be able to do more things, uh, more more globally, and for the environment,
Globally,
for
globally.
social
Yes.
justice, and we
Yes. Right. Art is the biggest communicator, I feel. People will understand messages
yeah, I
better
think
through
so.
art.
It's the one that crosses all the boundaries. Music is the same way. So I think that's important. I remember I was in
Yes,
Petra in
yes.
Jordan. I made a trip to Israel, and it's my second time there. I made a trip by myself, and I went to Jordan and went to Petra in the old city, and the Bedouins were there, and the original inhabitants of Petra,
Mhm.
the government built them a little village, and they say, you can live in this town, but you have all the proceeds from all the tourists. So they were all the tour guides, and I walked in about 30 minutes in with my
Yeah.
violin into this huge room, this huge room hall in the mountains, and
Ah.
people were looking at me funny because I had my violin. When I took it out, people were looking at me strangely when I started playing, and some of the Bedouin women were there, and they were enthralled. And after I played for about 10 minutes, I came back down and said, "I've never seen a violin play before. It's just," and she was like, "That was so beautiful." And another girl says, "My fiance just left me for another woman. Can you play me something sad?" And I played her Tchaikovsky violin concerto, the second movement, and a group of young Bedouin women were sitting there listening. They never heard violin or Tchaikovsky,
Oh,
and
so
I'm
you
sitting in the
were.
middle of Petra, and it's just like it's just it's really interesting. It's just a magical moment.
What an exciting time for you. I mean, you were surrounded by all those women. Must be very
I think I was
exciting.
excited about playing for people that have never heard the violin before, and the Western music, how it can move people. I was just like, before I started playing, people were kind of giving me the evil eye. It's like, what are you doing with this instrument out there? This is art. This is not the place for that. And they wouldn't even let me play it in the Western Wall in Jerusalem. They wouldn't allow you to take any instruments for security reasons. I used to play there 20
Good.
years ago.
Oh,
I would play there on the
okay.
Western Wall. Um, Wherever I go, I would take my violin and play.
Hmm.
I used to be a busker in Seattle in the Pike Place Market. That's how I made my living in the summertime as a student. And wherever I go in Europe, I would play. I would go to
Hmm.
famous composers' graves and play their songs for them. I went all around Russia, Italy, Austria, and a
So
good
you've
amount,
traveled
yes,
far
with
and wide.
different groups and different orchestras, and um, yeah.
Lovely. Recently, I was in a place called Yvor in France, and that's near Lake Geneva. And they
Hmm.
have a garden of the senses. It's called Jardin Cinq
Uh-huh.
senses. So it's a beautiful garden with different areas designated for
Hmm.
different experiences, like you say. And when I read about you, I just remembered that because, and then the chef would in the restaurant prepare something from the garden, the produce from the garden, and he would ask us
Wow.
to guess what it is. So it was beautiful. It was just amazing. So there was a purple theme where everything in lavender, purple, everything to do food items, all the fruits and vegetables also that grew
Wow.
purple. So they were
Wow,
theme
that's really cool
based.
that you can do that right at the
Lovely place.
garden. That's amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah. And we did something similar
yeah, it
here
was
as
lovely.
well.
Yeah.
In 2019, we're preparing for Beethoven's 250th birthday in 2020. So I talked to a Band of Bohemia, which is a Michelin star
Uh-huh.
restaurant and brewery, a beer brewery, that they did such amazing food. They got a Michelin star. So I talked to them, and they decided to try and make a Beethoven dinner with me. So as a test run, we did 75 seats. We paired my Beethoven's violin sonata called Kreutzer Sonata, his ninth sonata, and also Beethoven's string quartet, Opus 95. So the seven movements, and we
Hmm.
paired seven courses based with a chef with what was in season, and we designed every course, and it's a concert, but they have to get the food out at the right right points. And I also paired Tolstoy wrote a short
Right
story
point.
called the
Yeah.
Kreutzer Sonata based on Beethoven's Violin Sonata. So I took excerpts of his writing about
Wow.
Tolstoy's thoughts about classical music. I kind of had a reading in between movements as people cleared out plates. We had visual projections, so it was a
Wow.
amazing event with the sound with real. It's a concert, but with food pairings. Like there's wild boar, rabbit, carpaccio, chestnuts and apples. And it was quite yeah quite memorable. And
Truly memorable.
unfortunately, they went out of business over COVID, so we lost our partner. So we're trying to do more tasting events with other Michelin starred restaurants and other high level chefs. So when you actually go to one of these, it's very well designed and well executed, beautiful music and incredible food. And so it's not just it's like a not a casual
Yes.
thing, but well thought out.
Yes. It's a special event, and to celebrate something special, people would want to go to such events. So there is an audience for lovely
Yes, there is.
experiences.
We feel yeah, but we have to expand a little bit our organization so we can bring all these events to a larger population and have people experience it, and just I think that's ultimately will bring peace to more
You
people
will.
because the more we think about art and create art, the
Yes.
more people get together and we look beyond um, our backgrounds. Right now in America, everything's about you know BIPOC and about being equitable, which is important. But in my mind, I look at people as as what they are, what they do, and how they create. I don't look what they look like on the outside. So as hopefully in one of these decades in the future, you know in a utopian world, it wouldn't be an issue if you're black or not. And it just happens to be our board members are Asian and black, and or African American or Indian, and it just happens to be so at the moment. And people say, "Do you design? Do you make? Do you
Uh-huh.
intentionally make it that way?" I said, "No, because these are people that I love and I think are great, or great human beings, and they believe in our cause, or they're just great artists." Um, and you know, some of them
Mhm.
happen to be Caucasian, but most of them happen to be BIPOC,
True.
and
Yeah. I mean,
it's just the way it should be. I think.
exactly. You just have to connect with the profession and the art and the love and the passion. Nothing else. Nothing else should come in between. You know what, Jeff? We could go on, and this podcast will never end. So I'm going to be asking you a few rapid questions, and I want you to answer in very short, without taking too much time to explain why, how, whatever it is. Right? So the first question is okay, what do you think of the metaverse?
I think it's an important part of technology, and we always try to put technology into our shows. And we just did a show with artificial intelligence created animations based on original art. So I have people that are using metaverse in their fashion designs and virtual realities. That's something I want to explore as well. I think it's an important way to go forward yeah, and I was industrial engineering. I
Go for
was looking at
all
human
right.
interface
Second
in
question.
1990s, and we're still not quite there yet.
Mhm. Right. Second question. Visually fluent people, people who are able to pick out the popular art versus the traditional art world elites, people who really would root for people for age old art.
That's why I always try to find the intersection, because I think great art is what it is. It's not necessarily what people with wealth would think is fine art. That's what I find is important, that we find great art in various places and we present them, and it's for you to decide.
For what it is, not for
Yes.
something that appeals because of money. All right. And last question, Instagram likes or art
Oh,
galleries?
you know. It's like function versus beauty. I'll just leave it at that.
All
Yeah, great
right,
talking to
wonderful.
you.
Great talking to you, Jeff. Great immersive experiences make a user discover the story themselves. That is really the key to creating a compelling immersive experience. So, what Jeff here is doing is challenging the audience, drawing them in, and making sure that the realm of senses is truly benefiting the audiences. Here's wishing you great success, Jeff. It was lovely having you on the podcast. And I will end this episode by quoting Albert Einstein: the only source of knowledge is experience.